All right, we will start the meeting for July 22nd with a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance. For the moment of silence, the education community in Wells County lost a great educator in Jim Schwarzkopf. And so I know a lot of folks in this community had Jim, and he's done a lot of substituting and a lot of things over the last years in education. So please keep him and his family in your memories. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Yeah, we do have two in the discussion items. We have, just for discussion, MOU with Bowen Center and Park Center. So we'll talk about that a little bit today.
All right, can I have a motion to amend the agenda?
I'll make a motion here.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, right hand. All right, moving on to, well, I guess probably should add that there is no board recognition of students. Approval of consent agenda items.
All right, so you have the minutes from the executive session and also the regular meeting from July 8th. And then personnel report, resignations, Elizabeth Stalla, 7th grade volleyball coach at the middle school, and Doug Engel, substitute bus driver. Recommendations, Rebecca Captain, part-time pre-K at Lancaster, that's teacher. Brandy Meyer, teacher at Lancaster. Jamie Bryant, assistant football coach at the middle school. Patrick Hummerickhouse, whatever, I missed it. 8th grade volleyball coach at the middle school. And Cheryl Lewison, thank you, Lewison. 7th grade co-volleyball coach. And then Kelly Pence, 7th grade co-volleyball coach. Alex Murray, volunteer assistant boys soccer coach. Kyle Murray, volunteer assistant boys soccer coach. Jeremy Davis, volunteer assistant football coach at the middle school. And then we also have a overnight trip, girls volleyball. This is actually a little bit retroactive. Overnight trip, they went Monday night and coming back today. So I just need your approval officially on that.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, right hand. Reports.
All right, so do you want to do our quarterly financial reports in quarter 2? I'll ask Deb and Linda to go ahead and come at the podium as well.
Oh, man.
We don't have a.
Yeah, go back in.
Oh, is there a mine doesn't, mine's not even there.
You guys good? Just kind of not opening up for you.
I don't even have the link.
Wow.
Okay, well, it's up there, so.
Okay.
All right, so I just wanted to start off by, before we get into the numbers, just to remind people, so every year, this is in our annual report we have from DUAB, the Distress Unit Appeals Board, give us our physical indicators to kind of keep track of our health of our school district financially. And just always want to remind people when we talk about funds, education fund, you can see all that in blue is our state tuition. So that's basically our whole funding. We have a little bit of time where there's some federal stimulus that might come and that sort of thing. And there for a while, we had local income tax. Won't have that. But that's all of our funding is coming from state tuition. And then for operation fund, again, local property tax is our, almost all of our funding. There is some from other miscellaneous revenue, but for the most part, it's all property tax.
Where does ESSER funds fall into? Is that in education or
Federal
operation?
stimulus revenue. So you
Okay.
had it both, so you could have used it in operation and also in education. And that's actually going to come in a little bit when we look at kind of how it peaks a little bit when we look at, revenue. Because you can look here around 2020, we did get an influx of funding coming in, that some of that was stimulus money helping out a little bit. So, but what we've talked about, and we say target, I don't know if target's the right word. I think it's kind of the minimum that we would want it to be. So when we look at our percent of our fund balance to our expenditures, that really 10%, we don't want to go below that, really. There's school districts, some of the highest paying school districts as far as teacher salaries in the state are down around 5%. But those places are pretty confident in their enrollment every year, if not growing every year. I would not be comfortable with being 5% here. 10% is pushing it probably for our comfortability. But just to kind of give you the history, to just kind of remind you of that, 2020, so right there around COVID, we were at 15%. So it was just since then that we grew up to 30%, which we're at 30%, we need to be spending that down. We need to be spending on programming, teacher salaries, something going back to the education of kids if it's growing up to that high. So you're going to see that. You're going to see that as we start looking at fund balances, if that's getting paid down. Now, with everything we've been doing with capital projects and things, we've talked about this before, operation fund has really been going down. So you can see the history of that, where it was the highest. And now, this last time we had a report, around 15%. And so that one, we do want to start balancing that up, education coming down a little bit as far as fund balance, and operations going up a little bit, especially in light of what's happening with new legislation. So I give you all that just to kind of set the backdrop into looking at and reading our fund report for this quarter. And I just put in gray just so you could see a comparison where we were last year at Q1 and where we are now. And so you can see throughout that, so Q1 and then Q2, looking at all that for the Q2, basically the revenue has been pretty much the same for education, hasn't varied a ton. Has a little, and some of that's with your enrollment as that's fluctuated a little bit. Expenditures for the most part stay the same, peaks up a little bit based on how many payrolls we have in a certain quarter. And then you can see what we've transferred. This is what we transferred last year in Q1. We transferred $250,000 less from education to operation this last quarter, Q1. So want to just point out, so as you look at this, we started this quarter about 1.2 million less than we started the previous quarter. But again, going back to that chart, right, we were up at 30% of our fund balance as a percentage of expenditures. So that needs to come down. That needs to go back into programming. So that's a reason for that. We're obviously going to pay that down because we had a pretty strong fund balance to start with. And you kind of see where we're at now. We're continuing to pay that down. There's other things that we've used. So just to kind of give you guys where some of this money is going, we had to pay for curriculum. Remember that legislation that we can no longer charge fees? So that was about $235,000 that's come out of our education fund. We have software now that we're taking out of our education fund. Tech salaries, we moved from operation to education, so that's like $114,000. Anna's salary is now going into education fund because she was dealing more with the curriculum side of it. And then we did a lot of so we have stipends, prep buyouts, sub-teacher pay, high ability. That all came out to about $243,000. So a lot of money is coming out of education right now, some of it that we hadn't previously used for it. I will just say, just a caveat to that, there is a little bit of new language. They haven't come out with the guidelines for it, but that we can start charging fees again for family. We chose not to do it this year. To start the year, we want to watch that language come out, but we may start, like for example, for our devices, charging a fee for the devices where we weren't doing that previously, because that's a pretty big expense that's coming out of either, whether it's operations or a bond or the education. So that's education. I'll just pause for a second. Any questions on the education part?
So I think that the key is that in the end of 2023, we had a 30%. That also is not reflective of the changes that occurred in 2024, specific to in 2024 is when we had to start paying all of
Right,
the curriculum.
right. So I would say we're probably right now, probably 19-20%, like if we're gonna, like, when we get to 2024 and we look at that new chart, it's gonna probably be down around 20%. And now I will say, if we continue on, like, we're going to need to do some things differently, whether that's not transferring as much out of education to operations, which is a whole conversation to have there, right, with the strategy of doing short-term lease, or short-term geo bonds to continue to buoy up the operation fund, which we're gonna talk about in a second. So there's that, but I think it's going to, if we're looking at the 1.9 million right now, we're gonna start creeping into about 12%. If we could forecast 2025 at the end of the year, that's getting a little bit uncomfortable. Would you agree, ladies? That's getting a little bit uncomfortable for us. So I think but again, and we're going into a negotiating year with the teachers, and we've been very vocal here that it's more of a problem-solving exercise. We want our teachers to be highly paid and highly competitive with those around us. We want to get the best. But it is a reason why, when we're looking at not, like, positions that aren't hard to fill, that we can't be hiring at the top of the pay scale. We hired pretty high in the pay scale here over the last 5 years, kind of supporting what was going on in buildings. But when you have hard to fill positions at the high school that you know you're probably going to have to hire somebody with 15, 20 years experience, that's gotta be where you're putting your emphasis. My wife's an elementary teacher. I was an elementary principal for 12 years. Love elementary teachers, right? But it's not a hard to fill position. So you really, when you hear us say that, which was always told to me as a principal, you're hiring 0 to 2 years experience, that's always where I lived as a principal. Like, I never got to hire anyone over 2 years experience. We've done that here, but when you're looking at this kind of a scenario and you're wanting to continue to raise salaries for teachers and add programming, you have to be a little bit disciplined if it's not a hard to fill position, if that makes sense. So those are the kind of things that we're gonna need to be paying attention to. But I think that big piece is, can we do some things on the operations side that keep us from having to transfer the full 2.5 million from education to operations? Because just think about that. If you add 500,000 to that ending balance, what that means for us, right? So,
I just want to say, it really is a strategic move on our part to try and move some of these expenses to education fund in anticipation of the impacts Senate Bill 1's going to have. So we're trying to be proactive on that.
and it is kind of a give and take, like
Right.
it's like anything else. So we're doing a little bit here now, maybe we need to or auto-correct the other way and just try to, because again, we've talked forever, debt service, operation, and education fund, they have different purposes and you can only spend on certain things, but they work together. And you've got to think of them that way, even though they're separate funds, they're working in concert with each other. And so here, looking then at the operation fund, so the opposite's happening here, which again, like last year, we were talking about, and we still are concerned with operation fund, but we've been emphasizing that, trying to build that up a little bit. Well, that fund balance is, right now, $700,000 approximately more than it was a year ago. So we're moving that in the right direction. Part of that is the geo bond that we did in the fall. That was very helpful. So anyhow, it's just that give and take going back and forth. But we're just going to need to be really strategic moving forward here. I'm going to pause for a question, then I have something I want to just kind of talk to you about a little bit of anticipation of a discussion at our next board meeting. But any questions on Operation Fund, what you see there? Does it make sense? Okay. The one thing I just wanted to mention to you is to be thinking about, we had on June 4th, Stiefel came and we had a work session, talked about strategy for working through the hit that's coming with Senate Enrolled Act 1 and what that's going to mean for operations and kind of how we can anticipate and work with that. I think we need to have a conversation on the 12th, I'd recommend one anyway, revisiting that geo bond potential for this fall. We've already started working on it. We didn't want to do it at this meeting with the quarter two, but next meeting we're going to bring just all the documentation on what we've used the bonds for to this point, going all the way back to the bond for the middle school building, like that very first construction bond and everything after that, like exactly what we spent on for that. We'll give you spreadsheets ahead of time to look over prior to the meeting, but then talk about it at the meeting. But I think it'll probably either Jim or Luke will be here on the 12th, just to talk again about like why that's a strategy. I won't give the name of the superintendent I was talking to today, area superintendent. But I guess I'll hit that way a little bit. She said that she's less worried about, or they're less worried about education because they did a geo bond in the spring here in preparation for this. And so that's kind of what they're using as that balancing act for their operation. And it's a strategy. It goes against what we would maybe do in our own households. But when your revenue is only state tuition and property tax, that's all you have. We've got to think about it, that being a strategy for us. So, okay. That's it. That's all we have with it.
Well, I think it also puts some emphasis on rainy day, and the need to bolster rainy day a little bit more.
Right.
I think I've kind of, my concern, I think I've said this in our last work session, I think there's still a lot of uncertainty around SEA 1, especially given that the state indicated, or one of the economists that does a lot of work on property taxes indicated the average state assessment went up 12% again.
Mm-hmm.
So my concern is that if there is not enough relief to property tax owners, that the state's going to do another one. And then it's really going to hit us when the assessments start to really slow down. So we might not see as much of an impact right away, but I think once it really starts to impact, then it's going to really hurt. And which is why I think that we need to look at some of the extra areas that we have and move some of that over to rainy day, because I do think that it's going to be a necessary fund that we're going to have to dip into at some point.
Yeah, I agree. And I think too, the only thing in preparation for that conversation is, a part of it would just be, kind of bolstering and taking care of some maintenance and operation. But we do still have a couple things we want to do. Like we do need to have an inclusive playground, where we have disabled kids. Like they need to be able to go out and enjoy a playground, right? So that still needs to be done. We've got flooring issues here at the high school. So there's some things that need to be done, but it can be a balance doing some of those things, and also, like you said, taking off some maintenance type things that allows you then to move some funds from operation to rainy day and kind of plan for the future. So,
What is the rainy day balance?
Just about 1.5 million, just
Okay.
under.
I thought it was between 1.2 and 1.5.
Yeah,
so-
we started, when you look back 5 years ago, we started at 400.
Yeah.
Right? So made some headway in that. All right. All right, so I just want to give an update then also in part of the report on where we're at with transportation. So we sent out the email for parents to join Stop Finder and download that. Just want to say we have 800 parents who have downloaded the app, which is about half of total, which I'd like it to be 100%, but that's pretty good to have 800 parents downloaded it.
Is that half of total bus riders or half of total population of students?
Well, so we asked all parents to download it, just to make sure that if you put own transportation,
Gotcha.
which was really helpful because we also did the form to have them fill that, and we had 134 people respond on the form, just minor things like, hey, they'll tweet, got this wrong or whatever. And a lot of, I would say, I don't say a lot, maybe a tenth of them or something like that, were saying, we don't want transportation, we want our own transportation. So I'm glad I had them do that, otherwise we wouldn't have known that they wanted own and we had it in wrong, right? So that would be of all of our possible parents.
Do you know what the percentages of like households that at least have one parent that downloaded that?
I think, so I got that number from Krista, and I think that is that number, so I think the 800 is households. I
Household,
think.
not every parent.
Right, no, not every parent, because there's there's other parents, they can forward it to another parent and they download it, so this was just the primary parent, primary household. That's a good question. So 134 people put in corrections. Krista responded almost immediately. I was very impressed, to 120 of them. And immediately then made the correction within TransFinder for us. So I just want to put that. We still have some routes as we're looking at, routes for next year. there's probably 3 or 4 that are just longer than they need. We know that, they're longer than they need to be. So we're gonna work on that. We got Connie, Amy, and Lisa coming into my office again tomorrow, and we're gonna try to tweak some of that. It probably means we're gonna need to add a route in a couple of places, which is fine. But I wanna connect that with, so of our drivers, we have 3 new CDL drivers that are ready for their training, like right now, everything else is done, ready to do their training. And then we have 3 other drivers that will be ready for their training next week. So that's 6 new drivers. There's 1 driver, so we had 7. It's kind of ghosting us right now. I don't know what's going on there. But, so we should have by the end of this week, or end of next week, 6 new drivers, CDL drivers, going through their training. Now, they still got to go up and be tested and pass that test. And so, we may be a month and a half out of having those 6 drivers ready for us. And I say all that in that we also have 2 drivers that are recovering from surgery here during the summer that may not be ready for the beginning of the year. So what we're doing right now, what I've been doing is talking to some of these new drivers that won't have their CDL, but could drive those white buses for us. Because again, 14 passenger, we can drive those and transport kids, but they don't have to have a CDL. And so we may use some of our buses. I would love to do that because I really want to leave those buses that aren't special needs buses for Kelby and athletics so that they can get where they need to go. So I don't love using those, but if it takes, if that's the choice between kids riding in a crowded bus or being on the bus for an hour and a half or having to cancel a route, I'd rather do that, right? So we're putting some plans, and all those drivers said they'd be willing to do it, so I really appreciate that from them. I do want to say our special needs routes, we had a concerted effort for that, are significantly shorter. Really excited. There's, just thinking of 1 route that was probably 30, 40 minutes, that's going to be 15. And that's really important for those kids. Of all of our kids, they need to be on the bus the least amount of time. So I think I covered all that in terms of the stop finder and the routes and everything. Staffing update, I kind of covered that some with the drivers. Also, we had at one point posted the transportation director, so it's not something we need to get approved again. So it's not something you guys would take action on, but I guess I'm just curious, are you good with me going ahead and posting that? I'd like to do that, because just to set the record straight, of anybody in the room, like, I know we need a transportation director more. I mean, this is added to my plate, but I don't regret the path that we've on this last year, because it saved us some money that helped here with operations, but it also helped us get some things started, get some foundational things in place, so that when a new director comes on board, they don't have to do all that. They can just start and get going. So I'd like to post that if the board's good with me posting it. You don't, like I said, you don't need to take action because it's already been posted before, but
Yeah, I think it's needed.
yeah.
And I think when you posted it last time, it did have the transportation /
Well, we did it we did a couple things.
Okay.
One we posted like that, and I don't know that we got a lot of bites on that one. But then we did post it just as transportation, I think, last fall, because we actually had somebody come in and kind of meet with our drivers and kind of get it as part of the interview process. So, and that person was only going to do transportation. So we've actually posted it both ways.
Okay, yeah, I just want the best
Yeah.
person for the job, so.
Yeah.
Whatever works, yeah. I like
Okay,
it.
well, if you guys are good, we'll go ahead and post that again. And, yeah, I'm eager to get that in place as well. Okay, that's all I have for the report, unless you have anything else.
The only thing I think, just to add into the transportation part, it was a comment that was made at the last board meeting in regards to it not being legal for us to utilize our buses because they require, our white buses, because they require a CDL driver. That statement was misstated by the transportation inspector from the Indiana State Police and has been since corrected. And he sent us a letter in which we'll put on file into our minutes indicating his error and the correction that was made.
Yeah, I really appreciated that. So I went to inspections, which is when I was planning on talking to him, because I knew that wasn't correct, but I thought we just need to meet together, and he apologized profusely, so I really appreciated that, so.
All right. Moving on to discussion items. Declare no item, or no value items. This is not something that's generally been a discussion item. We want to get into the habit of there being discussion item and then an action item. This is usually something we just have as an action item. If you guys, it's up to you. If I had Mike put it on here as a discussion, if we don't want to do that in the future, we can. It's pretty cut and dry in what that means, but because there are new board members and this is new for some, I wanted to put it on as a discussion item in case there was any questions, so.
Yeah, just to let you know, so I didn't put it as a link or anything yet, but we're talking about and they're just older desks, right? And so things that we're not going to bring over. There were 5 like old teacher metal desks, like those old desks that are in there. There were 7 just office desks, and a lot of the drawers like don't open grade and things like that, so they're pretty old desks. Then we have, remember those, we have them in the boardroom. We had a combination of purple and green chairs, and so I think there's probably about 50 of those, I think, I don't know. Then we have, I think, 10 bookcases and cabinets, 1 conference room table. The conference table is not that bad of a table, it just doesn't go with everything we have here, but we could keep that and just have it in storage, but it's a heavy table to move. There's a break room table, I think Deb said was there when she started working there.
A couple years ago.
A couple years ago. We have, there's an old safe that just up until this summer, like we couldn't open. I mean, well, it was open, but we didn't know the combination, we just left it open, so didn't use it. And so we now know the combination to it, but there might be someone might want to, I don't know, I asked the guy what the value was, and I think it's less than $1,000 value, maybe $500 or something. I don't know, it wasn't very much, but it's going to cost them something, or it's heavy. It's a big deal to try to take it out. So we figure if somebody wants it, they can get it out and take it, right? So there's that. There's 2 refrigerators, full-size refrigerators, and there's a mini fridge. So all that stuff, we just kind of want to either leave it, which, by the way, the old central office was shown today. So hopefully there's going to be some nibbles on that. So we could either declare it no value, and if the new owner wants to keep it, they can keep it. If they want us to get it out, we can auction them off or let people come and take it or whatever, so that's kind of where we're at with it.
So I think the important thing to understand is we're declaring it no value, as in there's no need in the education setting. That doesn't mean we can't sell it.
Right.
It still has monetary.
It still
Yeah,
has
just no value
monetary
to us.
value.
Right.
It has no value to the educational, operational use.
And we have to do that. We can't just get rid of stuff that we've used taxpayer dollars to buy.
What would you do with the funds if we did sell them, that go into operations? Or
Probably put it in operations, yeah, probably just stick it back in there. I mean, we're not talking a lot of money anyway. But no, you're right, though, you're right. Where would we put it? We'd put it there.
Well, and I know at one point that there was a bunch of not smart boards, whatever those boards are called, that.
Whiteboard?
Yeah, whiteboards and chalkboards was the.
Yeah.
That, so if people want them, I think they reached out to Adam at that point.
Yeah, just come and
So-
take, yeah, so that's what we would do. We'd probably say, hey, it's gonna be open from here during this time, if you wanna come see if there's anything you want.
Yeah.
And you can haul it away.
Well,
But we're not moving it for people.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that if there is some value to things that we should,
Try to sell.
even if it's a small value, again, it is still taxpayer dollars. I don't know that I want to just give away things that actually have value when it can go back into
Mhm.
additional educational
Sure.
opportunities. So.
Are you comfortable then as a board that we just, through Adam, just set prices for things and then put it out there and
Yeah.
first come, first serve?
I am. Absolutely.
All right.
Okay.
I'll bring that to the next meeting, for action.
All right. And because this is a discussion item, is there any member of the public that wishes to speak in regards to this? All right, moving on to the Bowen Center
I'm
MOU.
going to ask Kelly Goody to come up to the podium here just to answer questions. These are annual MOUs that we ask the board to approve, but if you have questions, are you able to open those?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, I'll just see if you have any questions. We would bring it back then for an action next meeting, but just want to give you an opportunity to ask questions today.
Can you just give a 30-second of each of them? Or
Sure.
do we have to do them one at a time?
Let's do them one at a time.
One at a time, sorry.
So Senate Bill 246 back in 2021 states that we have to have a memorandum of understanding with at least one community mental health agency. So here in Wells County, we actually have 3, which is great. So we have 2 here today. So they literally are the same thing. It's just with 2 different agencies. So Bowen Center actually has several staff in our schools right now, but that's all through Medicaid funding, parent choice, things of that nature. Park Center, we've had some in the past. Both of them also are part of like our crisis response team if we need them to be a part of that as well. So it's just that partnership with these community mental health agencies that we have under that Senate bill.
So you said it's either driven by, like, maybe their insurance or their choice?
If they're, yeah, so we do have our separate student assistance program with Bowen Center. That's a different agreement that we would bring back, which is not today. These are just the ones where no funds are exchanged like through the school system.
If somebody has a concern, they can reach out. We essentially, through our contract, we allow them to have a direct reach to the Bowen Center.
Correct, and
Yeah.
we allow them to come into our schools
To have
based on, schedules and if it seems like an appropriate fit. So there's a lot of conversation that takes place with teachers, with building administrators, with school counselors. So we're getting ready next week to start those meetings again. So we have 2 Bowen Center staff in each of our buildings. So ranging from 4 kids in one building all the way up to 18 in another that they provide additional support to. So it's been a great partnership since they've been here. We've had one with both of them for at least 5 years.
Any other questions? Before we bring it back for next week for official approval, I would assume that the Corey probably needs to be recognized as the secretary,
Yeah, well,
not the vice president, and then also spell his name right.
Yeah.
yeah,
I
we'll
will make
fix
sure
that.
they make those corrections
Any-
based on them over to us. Sorry about that.
No problem. Any members of the public wishing to speak in regards to this? Okay. Park Center.
Did you say
Same-
Parks and- They're the
Park-
same, yeah.
Yep,
they're-
same
yeah.
essential services.
100%, yes.
Are there any members wishing to speak in regards to the Park Center MOU? All right, moving on to action items, the transportation procedures.
Yep, so the last time we had talked about, what do we do to know if someone's on riding for a little while, we had that part highlighted and we just took it out, right? Which is fine. I think let's kind of watch it this year and see how big of an issue that really is. There was something that came up, and I can't remember if this was in discussion when we were looking at routes the last between the meetings, I don't remember, but the request for new transportation to make sure people understand that if say you just enroll or something like that, you need transportation. I mean, it may take us a minute, right, to make sure that we can get you on a bus and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying it's going to take 3 days. If we can do it, we're doing it as soon as we can. But just to have that kind of caveat there, and for families, not especially if they ask for a change. For example, they've had a change in their, whether it's childcare or family dynamics and whatever, and so they need to change their stop. Well, that may be a whole rerouting thing that is going to take us a minute to figure out. So just want to make sure that we put that in there so families understand that. Does that make sense?
However, under emergency situations for changes, those would still be able to be addressed immediately.
Like what? What would be in there?
Somebody's house burns down, God forbid, but it's happened.
Yeah.
And we're not going to drop a student off.
Yeah, no, right, yeah, no. And, I mean, there's even times, like, for an emergency thing that our drivers, and they're great about this, that, because the one thing that's.
A
gonna-
medical issue,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
parent is not available
Yeah.
to be home when the child is
Yeah.
picked up. Like, those are the
Yeah.
emergency situations that I don't think are going to come up often.
No,
but
no, I'm
I
just
don't want
saying-
us to take 3 days
Right.
to implement if they need to go to grandma instead of mom's house because
Right.
mom's in the hospital for a
Right.
week or something.
No, we're just talking about, like, we're changing something in our transportation, and it's just like, you let us know at, 7 o'clock in the morning and think that we're gonna have it ready by the afternoon. I mean,
Right.
like, it's just, sometimes it's just, again, and if he could show you sometime, and maybe we will sometime, just kind of show you on the screen, the routes, like, sometimes it's just so convoluted, and you may think, well, we're just adding one kid, well, that changes everything.
Right.
Right, and so, and especially if it's a state highway, and you're only picking up on the right side, I mean, there's all that stuff, and so, it can take a minute, so I just want to put that in there, that's pretty common if you look at other school districts, in their procedures, that's a fairly common phrase to have in there. But other than that, it's all the same. So if you're good with that change being added, and we just ask for your approval.
Are there any questions or comments in the board? Are there any members of the public wishing to speak? All right, hearing none, I will take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second for approval. All in favor, right hand. All right, draft policy number 5335, use of our general artificial intelligence programs.
And I won't talk much on this unless you want me to, so if you're ready.
Are there any questions that we need Byron for?
I just wanted to verify with Byron, and I did before the meeting, that this is not something that we're just gonna hand over to our kids. The teachers are actually gonna be using it first, and they're gonna be familiar with it. It's not gonna be like the rollout of the iPads where we're in a mess, so.
Right.
I feel good about that, knowing that the teachers are gonna be using it.
Can you remind me, Byron,
First.
what's the program? You did your-
Magic School.
Magic School, yeah, so, and I know just even this, was it this week or last?
Yesterday.
Yesterday. that
Yeah, we
Matt-
did a training.
Yeah, I did training yesterday, so,
Magic schools?
Magic School,
School?
yeah, school.
Yes.
Any other questions? Are there any members of the public wishing to speak in regards to this draft policy, or the soon to not be a draft? All right, hearing none, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, right hand. Handbook revisions.
Yeah, so I will turn that over to Anna.
Yeah, so the only thing that, besides, I took added the board policy into the first thing, so we'll get everything that was mentioned last week added in. There wasn't a lot except for the language on mind altering, which was on, I can't think where it was. but-
37.
37.
Thank you. And so I have Ms. Morgan here. She can talk about it, but we've both kind of talked and we said, we don't need to change it. We can just leave it like it was. So if everyone's okay with that, we'll just not put mind altering in there. We can just leave it like it was last year.
So remove mind altering.
Yep, and just have it
Which
exactly
was
how it was last year.
Added.
Mhm.
I think it's a good, to just not put it in there, to keep it black and white.
Yep, and that's fine. Yep.
Like that. Were there any other questions?
Yeah, we talked about too, with the safe use and the discouraging our kids to use
Oh,
their.
yeah.
Where was that at?
Okay, it's under interacting with strangers online is discouraged.
Oh, right.
But I thought we were gonna move that to not
Prohibited.
allowed.
Yeah,
with-
Prohibited, yeah.
Like,
It has
move it
been
down to
changed.
prohibited.
Yeah, and we didn't do any, so what you have in front of us is just exactly what you were given last year, or last week.
Oh, okay.
2 weeks ago. We haven't changed anything as far as any of the changes. This was exactly what it was, and we just wanted you to approve it before we went in and change. When we go in to change the document, it's a little bit taxing, because if you change the word and add, let's say the word mind altering, and then you don't add it, well, it throws all the pages off, so we haven't changed anything, but yes,
Right.
that was
So
something
It's
not
it's on this
discouraged. It's-
document, it's just you haven't made the change in the official document
Right,
yet.
yeah.
Okay.
Well,
But you-
but on the safe use, though, to Tracy's point, though, it has safe use interacting is discouraged, and what you had said last time was taking that bullet and moving it down to be prohibited
To
behaviors.
prohibited.
And
Students,
then just put interacting
Right.
with strangers.
right,
under
students may
prohibited.
not, and then you say that,
Yeah.
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 And also adding the one board policy there, and then, and I think that was in, if I'm not mistaken, that was in the technology responsible use section. So as far as the rest of the language, just adding or deleting, and I do believe that everything else was okay, except for adding the board policy and the words.
Okay.
Yeah. The students cannot install apps seems like a challenge more than a statement.
Challenge accepted.
They will accept any challenge.
Are there any questions? Are there any members wishing to, from the public wishing to speak in regards to the action item? Hearing none, I will ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Yep, I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor, right hand. Thank you. ECA Code of Conduct.
day for this.
Man, if I don't get up and move like that, everything creaks and it hurts real bad, so I was trying not to hurt. Before I jump into that, not last week and the weekend before, we had the opportunity to work at the air show. With the band, the choir, cheer went up, we had girls soccer, who am I missing? Swim, football. We had probably 130 to 140 volunteers went up. Haven't seen the final numbers, but I think, and Mr. Springer politely offered us up, and that I would take the lead on it. So we did. We did.
You're welcome.
That's
Thank
called
you,
delegation.
No, it's
And
called
then Mr.
volunteer.
Donovan, who contacted me and said, yeah, because I haven't heard from that guy since. I said, yeah, I know. But I think we'll end up making, I'm hoping around $15,000 or $16,000 for our programs and be able to divide that money up. I haven't seen the final totals, but, you know, they were super appreciative.
And who
But
was
I
it-
bring that up
Who was it
because,
before that had a strong hold on that?
Snyder football,
Forever, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's only like every 3 years, so I think
Right.
they went out and got something. And it's a lot of work. I mean, it's cranking, but it was fun. We enjoyed it, and the air show was really cool. But I bring that up because Sunday, the Thunderbirds did a incredible moment for Sam. It was awesome. It was something that they don't normally do. And out on the tarmac, they had a ceremony for him. You guys were present. It was a nice tribute, and I just wanted to say that I thought that was awesome. So, okay, ECA. So after talking to you guys last time, we talked about number 5 a little bit, and I was looking at the wording. And part of it for me is the social media thing is just a wild, wild west. So I would like to leave it the way we have it, with the idea that I would like to spend kind of this year going and talking to my brethren, my fellow ADs, who seem to feel like July is their vacation time. I haven't figured that one out yet. I'm still working on figuring that out, but I'm not very good at vacation stuff. So I'd like to go back and we'll leave it as we've got it currently worded, with the idea that I think there's some improvements we can make with that and make it a little bit better and a little bit more clear. But I want to have some time to be able to kind of talk to other ADs, review kind of how are they wording some of this, if you guys are okay with that.
Yeah, I think it would be good just to see what other policies look like and kind of comparing, because we're not the only ones
Oh,
certainly having
absolutely not.
issues with social media and inappropriate and illegal behaviors with kids, so.
Yeah,
I just think there's been a lot of intended to be funny posts
sure.
across the district with athletics attached,
Mhm.
quote unquote, that just aren't funny. And
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done about protecting your classmates and your teammates and your
Agreed.
peers,
Agreed.
and not try to just ruin somebody's life.
Agreed,
So,
absolutely. So-
Yeah, a lot of conversations.
Yeah, and so I think that's a conversation that we continue to have and try to continue to figure out what that looks like and what's the best way for us to try to help kids with that process. Luckily, I grew up with 3 phones in the house and they were all attached to a cord.
Well, yeah, I just don't think they realize the depth of what this can do, even
Sure.
in the sake of humor.
Sure. And then the other one that we talked about would be like the action plan meetings. You know, we talked about putting something in there that basically said, you know, these people will be required. And I think I tried to put the language in that, you know, our coaches, our participants, sponsors and counselors would be made available when available, with the idea that we want them there. But if I'm trying to get Miss Oriana there at 7 o'clock, it's just not likely, but we'll bring her right back into that process.
Yeah.
And so if you'd like.
So
me
that
to
bottom
try to-
one, right? Bottom is what
The
you-
bottom one, yeah, the very bottom one. So if you'd like me to go back and try to reword that a little bit better, I was great in math in high school, and English was.
Yeah, I'm okay leaving it how you've suggested. I think, you know, if we take a look at it and we're gonna make some changes next year, I think maybe separating out who should be
Sure.
and who may be, just so that way you're
And I think
who should be there is clearly identified, but may also be present.
Okay, and I can try to, I mean, I can keep a log kind of and say, okay, we had hopefully 2 meetings this year. No, we had 15 meetings, and here's who were included, and we were able to get our guidance counselor there 13 times, or however we were able to do that.
Yeah, but really, it's the who must be there.
Correct.
You know, because I don't want a parent to look at it and says, well, I don't have to be there.
No, we've
Everybody else can be.
We've got to
I mean,
have the parent, we have to have the participant.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to be there. If it's not an athletic driven something, it's going to be Mrs. Morgan or Mr. Meyer or Mr. Hinderly, however it may work out.
I think clearly identifying who absolutely has to be there.
Correct.
And then who may additionally be
Correct.
there.
Yeah, the issue
That's-
with the
that's in that
previous was that
bottom.
Oh, it is, okay.
we were
Yeah.
trying to say it was
Oh,
must
must
have
include-
all
oh, the very-
5.
the very
It was
bottom one. No, I
difficult
know,
to get
I
our
know.
coaches and our guidance counselors. So,
Okay,
yeah,
parents-
it says we must have the parent,
Yeah.
the participant, and administrator, and then these other 2 will be made available.
I wasn't sure which one I was
Yeah,
looking
Sorry,
at.
it's down at the bottom.
Well, I-
Participants in the meeting must include the participant, the parent, and the building administrator, and then so the sponsor coaching of the guidance may also be included. Okay, perfect.
By saying a building administrator, it's inferred that it's the building that, like, it would be.
In which the student.
Oh, right.
Okay, I'm just.
Right, and because I didn't want to say that it was the athletic director, because if it was a,
Yeah.
you know, a choir situation or something along those lines that affected somebody else in a
Right,
different
but-
ECA, then.
But
it
like
would be-
Ginger's not coming up. to
Right,
the high school
Ginger,
thing,
yeah,
right,
that was mine.
Sure.
No, that's a good point,
Well, I
Hal.
mean, if Cam's out there and it's a middle school student, we're assuming that it will
It'll be
still
Andrew.
be Andrew that will
Sure.
be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, I like that. I like that bottom one on that one. And
Yeah.
then my encouragement on the top one as you reach out.
Sure.
My goal in these policies is to make it as black and white as possible.
Yeah.
So if you're finding that, hey, to me, this is one where if my kids get in trouble with this, their problem at home is gonna be worse than here.
Mhm.
So if, as you talk to the athletic directors or the people that you speak with, if there's not a consensus on certain items, make it just like you did on the bottom, like, hey, we've got consensus on how this
Right.
should be, this area, and then we can talk about it, because
Yeah, and
I want it to
I'm
be easy
I'm
on
trying to
you.
avoid the gray stuff, and I'm, you
Yeah.
know, it could be, include this, but it's not limited to this, and then I'm thinking, okay, we could throw 10,000
Right.
things in there. But then do we hit something? And so I was trying to stay where we were, to give myself a little bit of time to kind of go back and really try to
Yeah.
define that a little bit better, maybe.
Yep.
Sometimes zero tolerance is better than providing any tolerance,
Which is unfortunate, but
which
it's
is
true.
unfortunate, but.
Thanks,
All right.
Hal.
Yeah, thank you.
So I guess, so the recommendation would be to approve the change in the bottom one on the meetings for participants. But for now, just keep the,
The other one staying the same.
as it was, social media as it was.
Any other questions? Are there any members of the public wishing to speak in regards to this agenda item? Hearing none, I will take a motion.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor, right hand. All right, we're going to open up for limited public comments. Any member of the public wishing to speak in regards to any items that are directly impacting the education or the school corporation's business is welcome to come up. You'll need to sign in, put your address, and you'll have 3 minutes. Anybody? Going once, going twice. Are there any other business from the board?
The only thing I wanted to put, and we had left off calendar items, we got to remember to do that
Oh.
each time. So just wanted to remind you guys, so August 5th is our student information day at the high schools from noon to 7. And so the very first table is going to be transportation, right? And so we're just going to make sure we get that stuff right. So that's the first one, and then appreciate the CAM is kind of getting signs and having that run. I really like having it at the high school and letting all families come to one spot. So that's the 5th. August 11th is the all-staff breakfast. Starts at 7:30. It's at the middle school cafeteria. So we want to have it there with that newly renovated. You're invited to attend that if you're able to. Come have breakfast. It's going to be pretty short. We're just going to probably just go to 8:30 just with some little comments and announcements, but really just have a time for our staff to get together, have breakfast together, and then go off to their buildings. Then the 13th is First Student Day is coming around the corner, so.
Thank the Lord we changed the time to start, because this time last year, like July 31st last year.
Yeah.
was the first.
Right.
Was our last meeting
Yeah, I
before
really,
school started, yeah.
great decision to
Yeah.
move that calendar back. So,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All righty. Thanks, everybody.